When tragedies occur in the real world, shows aimed at a younger crowd often have a way of integrating lessons to be learned from them or changing plans that they might have had. There are 3 major tragedies that have had a profound impact on Tokusatsu over the years, so today we're going to take a look at what they were and how they impacted the shows on the air at the time. Choriki Sentai Ohranger was the big anniversary for Sentai in 1995. The show featured a return to military imagery with heroes who were trained soldiers, something Sentai hadn't seen in a few years by this point. Right out the gate, Ohranger was meant to be a serious, action-packed show with a focus on aliens, ancient technology, and kind of intense attacks. The first episode is a perfect demonstration of just how intense the show was supposed to be. Aliens attack almost as soon as the episode starts. Things are blowing up, people are dying. Most of the future team is being attacked and losing badly. The team is later saved by the Red Ranger, the only person to transform in this episode. It's the first episode and meant to hit a little harder than most, but this is the style the show wanted to run with. And then March 20th, 1995 arrives. On March 20th, members of the Aum Shinrikyo cult used sarin gas to attack the Tokyo Metro subway system. In total, 12 people died and over 1,000 people were injured. Aum Shinrikyo was led by Shoko Asahara. He was a charismatic religious figure whose Aum Shinrikyo had been recognized as a religious group in Japan in 1989. Appearing on TV, in print, and speaking at universities allowed his group to dramatically increase in size. Asahara was a conspiracy theorist who believed himself to be the literal reincarnation of Jesus Christ. He also believed that humanity needed to face an Armageddon. This was all the incentive people at Toei needed to modify the themes and tone of Ohranger. The show's producer has been noted as saying that they were forced to change the show by abandoning the hard, action-packed serious story and the idea of the villains as intense terrorists. One of the primary reasons for this was what was called the appearance of an evil that can surpass fiction in the real world. This sees Ohranger become somewhat sillier and a little more all over the place with its tone. Much of the show's second and third quarters are this odd slog of tonal whiplash. Being a Sentai show, it still needs stakes and it still needs drama, but this is something that they now needed to balance with the idea of an incredible evil existing in the real world. With Sentai, there are usually around 4 or 5 episodes beyond the most recently aired one that have already been filmed. Looking at this, we can see that the first episode impacted by this change was probably episode 9, which runs with a sillier storyline than anything Ohranger had really done by this point. Now we jump ahead to the late 90s and early 2000s. Metal Heroes had come to an end by this point, and the shows that took its place were Moero Robocon, Kamen Rider Kuga, and Kamen Rider Agito. These 3 shows were all revivals of older Ishinomori properties. Producer Shinichiro Shirakura worked on these 3 shows and was also a believer in the 3-year cycle theory, which posits that something can become tiring after 3 years, even if those 3 years were a success. To Shirakura, Agito marked that 3rd year, so he wanted to work on something different. As the show that would replace Agito in its time slot was being planned, the September 11th terrorist attacks in the United States occurred. Following the attacks, a memo came down from TV Asahi, which Shirakura recalls as saying, "We need to teach kids about justice now more than ever," and Shirakura couldn't really bring himself to say no. Whereas Ohranger pushed away from the realistic violence and overly sympathetic villains for most of its run, Kamen Rider Ryuki, the show that followed up Agito, dove deep into those themes. Ryuki featured 13 Kamen Riders fighting each other to the death over the course of a 50-episode series, a movie, and a TV special. The surviving Kamen Rider would have their one wish granted, and the organizer of the fight would use the energy gained from the riders and lives lost to sustain his dying sister. Ryuki was a massive entry into the franchise, not just because there were so many heroes, but because for the first time in the franchise, you had truly evil Kamen Riders. The riders all fought for various things: selfish desires, the wish to protect a loved one, and even just for the thrill of killing. The clash of ideologies was a direct response to the terrorists of 9/11. Shirakura says that the concept of justice can be difficult to grasp, especially as a young person. The big idea here was that we're each the hero in our own story, and as the hero, I can't possibly be wrong, being thoughts that children might have. Ryuki showed that despite the ambitions of the writers, the most mundane desires can lead one to committing horrible acts. Something that we all need to learn in life as children is that you can't look at yourself as the infallible hero in your own story. And now we jump ahead to March 11th, 2011. On March 11th, a magnitude 9.0 earthquake struck the eastern region of Japan. It triggered a massive tsunami that killed thousands of people and was the most powerful earthquake to ever hit Japan. It was the 4th most powerful earthquake in recorded history. It also led to what's been called the 2nd worst nuclear disaster in human history. So how did this impact Tokusatsu? Well, there are 3 different things to explore here. First up, Kamen Rider Fourze. Fourze was a show all about friendship, never giving up, and believing in the goodness of people. even in the main bad guy of your show. The show was produced by Hideaki Tsukada of Geki Ranger and Kamen Rider Double fame. Much like Hibiki and Ryuki, Forze is another show that was impacted by the real world. Planning on the initial idea for that year's Kamen Rider came to a halt after the events of March 11th. The idea the staff ran with was, we want to cheer kids up and give them something to smile about. While the devastation of the earthquake was mostly limited to eastern Japan, it displaced an untold amount of children, leaving many orphaned in the process. The people who make these shows felt that they had a duty to the children of Japan to cheer them up and give them something to smile about again. The show would be written by Kazuki Nakashima, who wrote the bombastic Toppa Tengen Gurren Lagann, and was the first Kamen Rider series directed by Koichi Sakamoto of Power Rangers fame. The idea was simple: give the kids a hero who would make them smile. The staff members even recall the lead actor, Sota Fukushi, often saying, "I want to be a hero that can make people smile again." So with Forze, the show was built from the ground up as a series meant to inspire kids and make them happy. Moving over to Super Sentai, the series impacted the most here was Gokaiger, the 35th anniversary show. The show's 5th episode was delayed by about a week to cover continuing developments surrounding rescue efforts. In direct response to the earthquake, Teruaki Ogawa, who played both Sasuke, Ninja Red in Kaku Ranger, and Hyuga the Black Knight in Gingaman, created the Tokusatsu Hero account on Twitter. The Twitter account was used by past Tokusatsu actors who would tweet in character, sending messages of hope and inspiration to the people of Japan. This is also what led many of the franchise's actors to be aware of Gokaiger. According to former Toei producer Shigenori Takatera, the incredibly positive reception to the Twitter account lit a fire under the staff and inspired them to bring back the two Gingaman actors most closely associated with the account, Ginga Red and Hyuga. This further inspired them to bring back as many past Sentai actors as possible. This also meant that most of the show was focused on these past characters interacting with the Gokaiger, leading to a sort of underdeveloped set of villains and heroes. In the case of the heroes, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. The Gokaigers were so bombastic and full of personality that you almost didn't need this huge amount of growth so long as they were fun to watch. It took a while to get them lined up, but once the guests started coming in, they started coming in fast. This is the reason why we got a ton of them after the Gingaman episode. So, without the Tokusatsu Heroes Twitter account as a direct response to the earthquake, Gokaiger would have only seen the return of cast members from Maji Ranger, Deka Ranger, Geki Ranger, Gao Ranger, Shinkenger, Car Ranger, Gingaman, Hurricaneger, and Goanger, leading to a very, very different show. And now we move on to Ultraman. The early 2010s and late 2000s was an odd time for the franchise. Suburaya Productions was still in financial insolvency and was fighting just to stay afloat. It was around this time that the company was purchased by Fields, a mega corporation in control of various entertainment outlets. At this time, Ultraman's main output was a yearly movie. These movies were higher budget than what you'd see Sentai and Rider put out. After all, they had an entire year to get things going. Ultraman Saga focused on a version of Earth that had already fallen victim to evil aliens, with a very select few being left to fight the good fight. Ultraman characters came from other worlds to save this version of Earth and taught audiences the importance of never giving up in the face of despair and hopelessness. So while this part has never been officially confirmed, it's been widely theorized that Suburaya, via their Ultraman Foundation, essentially donated the entirety of the 2011 movie budget to relief efforts following the earthquake. 2011 saw no Ultraman movie released. Instead, Ultraman Saga was released in the following year in March of 2012. And the mission statement for the Ultraman Foundation is acknowledging that children are the hope for the future. They've created various charities, brought actors and hero suits out to areas in need, and created short films in where Ultraman characters speak directly to viewers to impart messages of hope and courage. And that does it for that video. This one was an interesting one to work on. I ended up losing over half of the audio, and you can imagine with the subject matter that was a lot of fun to talk about again. Yeah, so wow, this channel really blew up over the last week. I have no idea what did it, but it's pretty awesome. One of my videos has over 20,000 views now. As you may have noticed, I've been shooting out videos around 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Mondays, and even though I'm going to have a schedule change coming up, I'm going to try to keep that as the video release time. Oh, right, so Power Rangers was also impacted by 9/11. There was a scene in Power Rangers Time Force where a villain is giving a speech, and in a rerun, the speech is sort of replaced with this weirdly janky edit of the theme song. Oh right, so one more thing, the Tokusatsu Heroes Twitter account, I will link to it in the description, and I will also link to a web archive of translations of various heroes posting. You have people from Ultraman, Rider, Sentai, even people who did Power Rangers dubs in Japanese. It's really, really interesting to read. Anywho, thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, comment, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys next week.